Let me be straight with you. Most people who sign up for a half marathon have absolutely no idea what they're getting into. And I don't mean that as an insult, I mean it as a wake-up call. Because if you've ever hit mile 8 of a half marathon and felt like your legs were made of concrete, like your lungs were on fire, like every single person around you was somehow running on a different fuel source than you, then you already know exactly what I'm talking about. And if you haven't run a half marathon yet, but you're planning to, listen even closer, because what I'm about to tell you could save you from one of the most brutal, avoidable experiences in recreational running. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Finishing a half marathon in pain is not a badge of honor. It's a sign that something went wrong. And in most cases, that thing went wrong weeks, sometimes months, before race day. Stop. Think about that for a second. The suffering you experience at mile 10 has almost nothing to do with mile 10. It has everything to do with decisions you made during training, decisions you made at the starting line, and one specific mistake that almost every intermediate runner makes, and almost nobody talks about honestly. You've been running. You've been putting in the work. Maybe you've already watched the earlier videos in this series. You've fixed your pacing. You've built your aerobic base. You've stopped going out too fast in your 5Ks and 10Ks. That's real progress. That's not nothing. But the half marathon is a completely different animal. It's not just a longer 10K. It demands a different kind of thinking, a different kind of preparation, and honestly, a different relationship with discomfort. And that's exactly what we're going to talk about today. If you've been following this series, you're already ahead of most people. This episode is going to take you further. If this is your first time here, stick around. Because everything we cover today applies whether this is your first half or your fifth. Drop a comment right now. Have you ever hit the wall in a half marathon? Tell me where it happened. Mile 8? Mile 10? Mile 12? I read every single one. Now let's get into it. And let's start with the thing nobody wants to admit. Most runners training for a half marathon are not actually training for a half marathon. They're training to survive it. There's a massive difference. Surviving a race means you cross the finish line, probably in some degree of pain, probably slowing down dramatically in the last 3 or 4 miles, probably swearing you'll never do it again, until about 2 weeks later when you sign up for another one. Running a half marathon without suffering, actually running it, controlled, strong, finishing with something left in the tank, that requires a completely different approach. Here's what's actually happening to most people. They run their long runs too fast. I know. You've heard this before. But here's the part nobody actually follows through on. Too fast doesn't mean a little too fast. It means embarrassingly too fast. It means the pace where you can still hold a full conversation feels so slow that your ego physically resists it. That resistance, that's your enemy. Because when you train your long runs at the wrong effort level, you're not building the aerobic system you need for race day. You're just accumulating fatigue. You're burning through matches you'll desperately need in mile 11. And then there's the fueling problem. The half marathon lives right at that brutal boundary where some people think they don't need to fuel at all, and some people have no idea how. 21 kilometers. Roughly 90 minutes to 2 hours and change for most recreational runners. That is absolutely long enough to deplete your glycogen stores if you don't manage it. But here's the thing. Most intermediate runners treat nutrition strategy as optional. They figure they'll just push through. Be honest with yourself. Have you ever thought, it's only a half, I don't need to worry about gels or anything like that? Because if you have, you've already identified exactly why you hit the wall. Let me be even more direct. Your training runs probably look something like this. You go out 3 or 4 times a week, you do your miles, you feel pretty good on the shorter runs, you struggle on the long ones, and you tell yourself that the struggle is just part of the process. And it is, but only up to a point. If your long runs consistently end with you dragging yourself home feeling destroyed, that's not toughness building. That's your body telling you that the stimulus is wrong. Not too hard in the motivational sense. Wrong. Structurally wrong. And on race day, wrong training produces exactly the results you'd expect. Okay. Now here come the excuses. And trust me, I've heard all of them. I've probably made half of them myself. I don't have time to run slower. I have a schedule and I need to hit my mileage. Interesting. So you have time to spend 4 weeks recovering from a race that destroyed you, but you don't have time to adjust your pace on a Sunday long run? That logic is impressive in the worst possible way. I've run halves before, and I survive. Surviving is not the goal. We talked about this. The fact that you survived doesn't mean your approach was right. It means your body is resilient enough to absorb your mistakes for now. That account has a balance, and you're making withdrawals every time you do this wrong. Fueling during a half marathon feels weird and unnecessary. Here's a fun fact. Your muscles don't care about what feels weird to you. Your glycogen stores don't consult your preferences before they run out. This is just physiology. You either work with it, or you pay the price somewhere around kilometer 16 when your legs suddenly feel like they belong to someone else. My training felt fine. I just had a bad race day. Okay. 1 bad race? Maybe. 2 bad races. Pattern. 3 bad races? That's not bad luck. That's a method that isn't working. Be honest with yourself, really honest, not I'll do better next time, honest. Actually look at what you're doing and whether it's producing the results you want. I'm not fast enough to worry about strategy. This one actually makes me laugh a little. Slower runners need strategy more than fast runners, not less. Elite runners are done in 65 minutes. They're barely touching the edge of their glycogen capacity. You're out there for 2 hours. The longer you're running, the more every decision matters. The pace strategy, the fueling window, the effort management. It all matters more for you, not less. Ridiculo. Now, here's what actually works, and I'm going to give this to you straight because you don't need theory. You need something you can apply in your next training block. First, your long runs need to slow down. Genuinely slow down. For most recreational runners, your long run easy pace should feel almost uncomfortably slow. We're talking 60 to 90 seconds per mile slower than your goal race pace. If you're aiming to run your half at a 9-minute mile pace, your long runs should be happening at 10:30 to 11 minutes per mile. That's not laziness. That's building the aerobic infrastructure that will carry you through kilometer 18 when everyone else is falling apart. The adaptation happens at lower intensities than your ego wants to accept. But here's what nobody really tells you. And this is the part that changes everything. Your long run isn't just about mileage. It's about time on feet. Stop thinking about it as, I need to run 12 miles. Start thinking about it as, I need to spend 90 minutes to 2 hours running at an aerobic effort. That mental shift sounds small. It is not small. When you focus on time instead of miles, you stop chasing pace. You stop comparing yourself to the runner ahead of you on the trail, and you actually let your body do the work it needs to do. Second, you need a fueling strategy, and you need to practice it in training, not discover it on race day. Here's the simple version. For a half marathon, most runners need to take in carbohydrates starting around 40 to 45 minutes in. A gel, some chews, whatever you've trained your stomach to handle, not because you feel like you need it yet. You won't feel like you need it until it's too late. You take it because the clock says it's time. You do this once, maybe twice, depending on your pace, and you wash it down with water. That's it. It's not complicated. But you have to do it in training. If the first time your stomach has to process a gel at mile 5 of a race is on race day, you are rolling the dice. Third, learn what race effort actually feels like at kilometer 1 versus kilometer 10. This is the piece that separates runners who struggle in halves from runners who actually run them. Most intermediate runners go out at race pace at kilometer 1 and are already working too hard by kilometer 5. Real race execution looks like this. The first 3 kilometers feel almost too easy. Genuinely easy. You'll see people flying past you. Let them. The half marathon doesn't reward the person who looks strongest at kilometer 3. It rewards the person who's still running strong at kilometer 18. I'll say it differently. The first half of the race is just a warm-up. Your job in the first 10 kilometers is to not mess up the last 11. That's it. If you go out controlled, if you fueled right, if your training built the actual aerobic base you need, then somewhere around kilometer 14 or 15, something interesting happens. You start passing people. Not because you sped up, because they slowed down and you didn't. That feeling is worth everything. Now, me diga, does your current training plan actually include those elements? Or have you been running the same loop at the same pace and hoping the race goes differently than last time? Think about it. Here's one more thing that doesn't get talked about enough. The mental contract you make with yourself at the starting line. Most runners who blow up in a half marathon didn't blow up at kilometer 16. They blew up at kilometer 1 when they let the crowd energy and the adrenaline and the excitement push them out 30 seconds per mile faster than they planned. That 30 seconds per kilometer costs you everything in the back half. Everything. So before you toe the line, you make a deal with yourself. You name your first kilometer pace. You run that pace regardless of how you feel, regardless of who's passing you, regardless of the crowd. That deal is the difference between finishing strong and stumbling across the line. You've come a long way in this series. Think about where you started. Struggling with pacing in the early kilometers of a 5K, running your easy days too hard, skipping recovery. That runner and the runner you are now, not the same. You've built something real. The half marathon is just the next chapter. And here's the bottom line. 21 kilometers without suffering is not a fantasy. It's not reserved for elite runners or people with perfect genetics or runners who have been doing this for 15 years. It's the result of a specific approach, applied consistently. Slow your long runs down. Fuel before you need to. Respect the first half of the race. That's the method. It works, and if you apply it, your next half marathon will feel like a completely different experience than your last one. Stop treating the half marathon like it's just a long run with a medal at the end. It's a race. It deserves a real strategy. And now you have one. But here's the thing. Everything we talked about today, it becomes a completely different conversation when you're talking about the full marathon. Because at 42 kilometers, every single variable we discussed today is amplified. The pacing decisions are more critical. The fueling becomes non-negotiable. And there's one element, one specific piece of the puzzle that breaks more marathon runners than anything else. And it has nothing to do with fitness. In the next episode, we're going to go deep on finding your perfect pace for the full marathon. Not just the number, the actual process of figuring out what pace is right for your body on race day in real conditions. And I promise you, the answer is not what most training plans will tell you. If you haven't subscribed yet, do it now. This series is building towards something, and the next episode is one you genuinely don't want to miss. And drop your comment below. Have you run a half marathon before? What happened in the last 5 kilometers? Tell me exactly, because your answer probably already tells me what's missing from your training. See you in the next one.